what that looks like at Sparkbox, how to become a tech lead, and things along that line. So when I first joined Sparkbox, I'd have these conversations with my friend Rob Haar. He's now our vice president, and we would talk about. We had this really talented team. They were really good at what they did, but they were relatively early in their careers, and we wanted to figure out how do we help them gain some experience so that they can grow into leaders of themselves. And so Rob and I both come from a consulting background. And what that meant was we'd go from client to client. We'd be learning new businesses, new domains, the things that would work at one client to solve problems, whether it was to understand the business or to implement things or to organize work, would work. And sometimes it wouldn't. Right? It didn't always translate. You were navigating new cultures. You were finding new personalities and figuring out how to work with different personalities. You gained a lot of new perspectives. It was challenging. It was a lot of fun, and we grew ourselves pretty quickly because of all of these dynamics, right? And this variety. And so our challenge was, how do we help our team grow similarly? And we didn't really want everybody to we knew that folks were going to have a season with Sparkbox and some were going to leave, and that's fine, but we didn't really want that to be the way they grew. We wanted to find ways to help them grow while they were at Sparkbox as much as possible, because we knew if they grew, Sparkbox would grow. Sparkbox is only as good as the folks on our team. And so that's what I'm hoping to talk about here: how we grew our team, how we added this role of tech lead amongst others, and look at what technical leadership looked like. I'm hoping to talk about that. We'll talk a little bit about the traits, the skills, and the experiences, especially that we look for at Sparkbox, those things that we try to create opportunities for. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about growing into a tech lead and how you can do that towards the end. And hopefully, if you're interested in becoming a tech lead, or you're trying to help your team grow gain some technical leadership, you'll get some things out of this talk. So clearly there's a bit of a disclaimer wrapped over this whole thing. This whole talk is framed by, Sparkbox, our business, which is client services, which is a little unique to some folks out there. It can be different at an internal IT organization. A lot of these principles still apply, I think, but how they come about and how they apply may be a little different. This is also framed towards the culture that we've developed at Sparkbox. We've worked really hard over the last 10 years to develop our culture. We still do. It's a work in progress at all times. It's also framed by my background. So I've been thinking about this since pretty much day one at Sparkbox, the last 7 years. I continue to think about it. It's always on my mind. And so a lot of my background comes through in this thing as well. So let's talk a little bit about what, at a high level, a tech lead is, just kind of in an abstract perspective, okay? So first and foremost, for Sparkbox, a tech lead is a right hand to the project manager. So you may or may not have somebody with the role or title of project manager that you're working with, but I guarantee you there is somebody at your organization who cares about the investment going into your project or your product and the outcome from that investment, right? The things they're going to get in return. So they're thinking about budget, money. They're thinking about the time investment, and what the outcomes for those things are going to be. And the role of our technical leadership is to help those folks weigh options, right? They have varying ways to solve problems, varying ways to order operations and what they deliver. And we need to be working together to do that because we have a unique insight into the various options and what it'll cost to implement those options. So the technical leadership is also looking to surface to everybody, the stakeholders, both the project manager, the team itself, and then the broader stakeholders, the state of any one project. So one of the anecdotes I have for this is we love to do demos at Sparkbox. We love to share what we're doing, and we want to celebrate that. That's an important part of it, but it's also there to help us understand where we're at. And it's not just the things that we finished, but also the stuff that's not yet done. The example might be, you're building some web solution, some web project, whatever it might be, and you've got some front end progress that's happened, and you want to show that because it looks great, right? A demo's great. People love seeing the great designs that we build and things like that. But a lot of times there's some back end work that has to be done with those, right? Maybe we're building APIs, maybe we're building out databases, we're processing some data on the back end, doing something like that. And it's easy to make progress and show progress and allow the front end team to work while those things are being built based on just like fake data or something like that. And we've probably all tried this in some way, shape, or form. And you can demo that, but if you don't talk about that situation, the fact that this isn't real data, it can be unclear that there is still undone work there. There's work that's not yet done, and surfacing both the things that are done and the stuff that's not yet done is a really important thing. And it's important to be transparent about those things and to do it all the time. And we expect our tech leads to be working with project managers to understand those things as well as other stakeholders. So they're also taking all of this in, the state of the project, the options, the investment, all these things, and helping our project managers understand or work on deciding on what are the next steps. That might be our next, week or days. That might be the next couple months. It might be the next couple of years, formulating a strategy there, right? And of course, what this means is, as they are working on all of this stuff, they are no longer measuring the success of their own success as how many commits are out there, how many features they've moved along. Instead, what they're measuring their own success by is the success of the team, right? They're probably not the number one contributor on the project anymore. There's a good chance of that, with the most lines changed in the GitHub repo or anything like that. Instead, what they're looking to do is support the rest of the team in doing those things. And there are going to be situations where there are challenges on projects. There are going to be opportunities for our team members our tech leads, I should say, to work on interesting problems that intrigue them. And those are some of the places where they need to support the rest of the team. Now, Michael Lopp, who used to be, I don't think he is anymore, the lead of the Slack engineering team, he has this wonderful talk, the link is down at the bottom there, called the New Manager Death Spiral. And it's fantastic. I wouldn't necessarily say a tech lead is a management role, but I do think there's a lot of corollaries there. So, for example, one of the kind of anti-patterns that a tech lead can get into is when things get rough, maybe timelines or budgets are getting tight, is a tech lead can often just, say, all right, I'm going to go back to my roots and I'm just going to ship a lot of code. And at the detriment of the rest of the team being productive. And this is one of those places where a tech lead maybe needs to step back and figure out how they can enable the team to be more productive. Because if you can get 2, 3, 5 folks to be a little more, help them be more effective, right? Help them be a little more productive by being more supportive. You'll often most of the time find that it's more of a benefit to the project overall than one person, even the best developer out there, to be doing all of the work. Okay, so I highly recommend watching that talk by Michael Lopp. It's wonderful. So another expectation or responsibility, I guess we have of tech leads is to be regularly describing the technical vision for a project. So one of the things all of our new engagements with clients begin with is what we call a discovery. And so this is an opportunity for us to learn our customer, learn their business, learn their objectives. So we'll get together with them. Maybe it's a day or two. Sometimes it can be a longer period of time where we're really understanding a complex domain, business, and vision for what they have for a product or a project. And out of that comes this idea of a technical vision or a technical strategy for us. And our tech, it's very easy as an individual contributor to get really narrowly focused. And I think everyone does this, even our tech leads. I know I do it. Is when you're working on a particular area of a code base, you can put blinders on and think about just that one area. And it's easy to lose context for where that fits in the overall technical vision, the architecture, et cetera. And that's important to have that context from time to time, to come back to those roots. And our tech lead is the one trying to zoom out like that. And they're doing that on a regular basis so that they can understand how the pieces fit together. And they're helping everybody else. They're helping the rest of the team understand how the pieces fit together as well. So clearly this means we have to have a technical vision. And so that's what we would expect of a lot of times of our tech leads, is for them to come together with the rest of the team or with our technical directors and our clients and figure out what does a short and a long-term vision look like, and how are we going to craft a strategy to iterate towards that long-term vision. It's going to change over time. We know that's the case. We're going to learn more every day about both our partners, our business, and our software, but we need to have a vision for where we want to go so we can iterate towards that as well. And those are things that we would expect our tech lead to keep in mind, and to be able to zoom out and bring everybody back together from time to time. Our tech leads are also a model for how we work together. Now, Sparkbox has tried to articulate this. There's a link down there at the bottom that describes how we work together. I'll give you some examples here in the middle. I'll give you some examples here in a minute. I can't tell you that this is the perfect way for your team to work together, but I do know that leadership, our technical leads, have a responsibility to model what we want to see out of our teams, right? So let me give you some examples of what that means at Sparkbox, and I think this will resonate once you hear some of them. So we do pull requests, right? We maybe make some code, submit it via GitHub or Bitbucket or whatever the project is using at the time. And one of the things that we expect out of all of our team members, and I think this is important, especially of our tech leads, is to give kudos or to celebrate some of the cool things that we see of our team members in those PRs, just as much as we ask or question or challenge some of the other implementations. So that might be celebrating, hey, this is a really neat, interesting way of solving this. I like how you did this. Just as many times as you say, hey, I think we need to look at this. I think we can maybe do this a different way. What do you think about this? And having that balance is important, because we want to create a positive experience for pull requests for everybody, right? Like, we want this to be a collaborative experience. And if it's always negative, it can be a real downer, right? That's not really what we want on our teams. We want to enjoy our work together, and we want to enjoy people. We want our team members to be available and present for pairing and sessions and meetings, right? We do pair a fair amount. We're in meetings from time to time, and we expect people to pay attention, right? Don't be in Slack. Don't be responding to texts. Don't be working on that feature that you haven't finished yet while you're in stand-up. It's respectful. It's something that we expect out of all of our team members, and I know that we all do it, but we're expecting our tech leads to kind of model this and be very present during those sessions. They're caring about things like the build pipeline and constantly making it better, and they want everybody to be doing those things. We're expecting tech leads to care about testing just as much as everybody else. They're not giving kind of the grunt work or the things that they don't like to other people on the team and doing the things they like. We all own this together, and we all care about the code base and the product together. They're being very transparent with estimates and things along that line. They're telling folks, this is how long this is going to probably take, surfacing that to PM so that kind of that feedback loop can be made around, what we can expect to see. Those are all things, amongst others, that we expect our tech leads to be doing just as much as anybody else on the team. So this last one, again, this is all kind of high level tech lead abstract ideas for what a tech lead is doing for our team. But this is the one that I think kind of covers everything. It's the umbrella that wraps everything together. And so we ask our tech leads to empower and unlock the teams that they work with. And they do that through a handful of different ways that we'll deem. You're going to find a team that can be incredibly productive and incredibly effective and collaborative. And there's all kinds of different ways to do this. So now that we've kind of got this high level understanding of what a tech lead is for at least for our team, what we believe is important. Let's start to dig into some of the traits and the experiences and the skills that our tech leads, that we're looking for in our tech leads, we're looking to grow in our tech leads. So first and foremost, you're going to have to be a good developer. It's important, right? Having had time and experience in the industry, building software and screwing up is just as important as doing great work. You learn a lot from those experiences. And so technical skill is important. At the end of the day, we expect that you're probably going to be the go-to expert in at least one area of the code base. I mentioned that we're in client services, so we're building a lot of different types of software. We see a lot of different platforms and things like that. There's no way one person can be an expert in everything, right? There's just too much going on in the software industry. But for any one particular project, you're probably going to need especially the core one in a product. So, for example, for me, that's things like design and architecture patterns, system integrations, building out APIs, testing. Those are the things that I'm pretty good at, right? So if there's a project out there, a software project out there that's going to do those things, I'm going to be able to help quite a bit. I'd probably be a good tech lead for that project. If this is maybe a higher ed content management system with, lots of different properties and things like that, I can help, but I'm probably not going to be the best fit for a tech lead in that one because, my HTML, CSS skills are not as good as a lot of folks on our team. My content architecture skills and breaking those things down, I'm not the best there. Okay. Because you're a go-to expert in some area of the code base and you've had a lot of experience working on different systems and different architectures and building software and watching it break, you're probably going to be the person that people look to or the perfect person to debug some of the hairiest issues and bugs that come up. They're going to happen and you're going to need to be there. And so having that broad awareness of the platform and the architecture and the overall vision, where the pieces fit together, you're going to probably have a good idea to help, or some good ideas to help debug some of those nasty bugs. This can also be a trap, of course. We want to avoid being the hero at all times. We're trying to, bring other folks in so that they have those experiences as well. And so, be careful. There's some give and take there. So we're also, as a tech lead, we're also looking for ways to build seams into our architecture, into our system. And we do that for a couple of reasons. Where our goal is to allow the team to be productive and allow them to collaborate. And what seams allow us to do is allow folks to kind of work on their independent parts. Remember, they're zooming in an area. Maybe that's just for simplicity's sake. Maybe we're coming up with contracts between a front end and a back end, right? And so our seam is somewhere in the middle in those API contracts. And we're going to describe what those look like. Even if you're using something like, in REST or APIs like that, that's pretty clear. This is what the payload inbound looks like. Here's what it outbound looks like, and we're okay. And if you're using something, this even comes up for things like GraphQL, right? We need to describe what data models look like so that they know what they can query and what that data is going to look like on its way back. And we can model some of that, and those two teams can kind of work independently and see the impact of that change when they start to integrate together. And that what's interesting about that is then now our tech leads are interested in feedback loops, right? We're allowing teams to work productively, kind of on their own maybe a little bit. And then our goal is to find ways to bring them back together, to find feedback loops. We want short feedback loops for developers that are working together. Those are things like unit tests, linting, great fast local builds, pull requests. Maybe you're using something like Code Climate's quality product to see static analysis and some, maintainability numbers out there. Those are short feedback loops around different areas. But then we also want these broader feedback loops for our overall team, for our partners, for our business friends, our stakeholders, for our PMs. And that's where things like continuous integration and automated deployments, system health metrics, maybe you're using an APM tool like New Relic, coming up with business metrics. You're using something like, what's the one I'm thinking of right now? Maybe it's Google Analytics and you're coming up with metrics for some of those things. having those different layers of feedback loops is really important. And that's why our tech leads, we're really interested in them caring about a robust pipeline, a build and delivery pipeline. That's everywhere from local to code repository to CI to deployments, and then the feedback loop. So, using things like a roll bar or Sentry to record deployments and tie that back to the changes that we're making in the system. Oh, so that's a lot. It's important to be a good developer. It doesn't mean that our tech leads are doing all of that necessarily, but they do care about those things. And those are the areas of technical skill that they care about. Jumping ahead a little too far here. There we go. All right. So let's talk a little bit about how communication and this idea of leadership come into play. So I don't know where I heard this. It was years ago, but it's really stuck with me. And I do really think this is kind of the foundation of the way that I think about leadership and what new leaders need to be doing, or what leaders need to be doing at all time, whether that's technical leadership or management leadership. And that's, leaders should always be creating new leaders. And two of the most important and best ways they can do that is by being great communicators and by supporting others in doing great work. All right. So the first thing that I think tech leads need to be able to, and this is something that you can practice, is being very good at presenting your ideas and articulating thoughts clearly to others. Whether we like it or not, tech leads, when you get the word tech lead or when you get the word leader as a part of your role, as a part of your title, your words have a little more weight to them. It may not be fair, it may not be something you like, but it happens. And so it's important that you are able to articulate your thoughts clearly and to do it well, and in order for folks to understand, but also because at the end of the day, being able, you could force your thoughts on people, but that's not creating new leaders. That's simply telling people what to do, and that's not super effective in the long term. So they're doing things like drawing diagrams, right? And trying to do that so that people can see what you're talking about and explain things. And there's a very good chance you'll be wrong, and that's okay. But by explaining things, you can create this opportunity to collaborate on ideas and on your vision and on your architecture. So you're drawing diagrams, you're writing cards, story cards or whatever you want to call them, and you're doing that with context. You provide background. You're explaining, maybe for more junior developers, some tips and tricks for how you might implement something like this, options for implementing things. For if you know the audience for a card or for your diagrams is a little more experienced, you might be able to leave some things out that they can fill in on their own. And so knowing your audience is really important. But at the end of the day, you need to know your audience, whether it's technical in nature, in convincing or sharing your ideas, or they're not technical. You need to be able to have great communication skills. And that is something that you can practice, and it is something that you can get better at. And it really only happens by creating opportunities for folks to do that. And that comes to the second one. You need to be, it's important for our tech leads, not just to mentor and teach, but to do it with grace, right? To do it with kindness. We're doing that in pull requests by not being condescending, not talking down to folks, by doing it in planning sessions, explaining the overall context and then drilling into things for folks so they understand this is the area we're talking about and here's where it fits in the overall context, by giving reasons for your feedback, not just saying, hey, this isn't the way we should do it, let's do it this way, but also explaining why, right? Because now all of a sudden, the person on the receiving end of your why, of your experience, now is taking that with them, and they can make those decisions on their own next time. So being able to communicate and be a leader, but doing it with grace it's hard. It takes patience, it takes time, but the benefits are there for it. All right. Hopefully you're not groaning too much. So when I say a tech lead needs to, one of the things a tech lead can do to be effective is managing a project. I'm not asking for our tech leads to be project managers necessarily. I'm not asking them to run Jira or to open sprints. They'll probably do it from time to time as a partner with our PMs. And because it's really just, it's the stuff that helps grease the skids for work. But that's really not what I'm talking about here. So what I'm talking about here is helping our overall team navigate to success, right? Our goal here is to give our project managers, our clients, our customers a steering wheel by which to drive the project to the right success, right? We're going to start over here with maybe a blank slate or some previous project or software that's not meeting the needs. And our goal is to get over here, right? And as we go along, we're going to be learning along the way. We have constraints on projects. Maybe it's budget, maybe it's time, maybe it's platform, things like that. Those constraints are there. And our goal is to guide decisions by being transparent, by surfacing the state of the project, and by planning reasonable iterations, right? By understanding the constraints that we know we want to get from here to here. Here's how we want to, here's how much time and money we have to invest in this project. Here's our skills. Here's what a plan could look like, and here's what we are able to do. And by having a solid build and deploy pipeline so that people can see what's going on, by enabling collaboration and all of those things, our tech leads are able to kind of lay out a roadmap to get to success and work with those folks to make decisions and weigh pros, cons, and options along the way. They're going to do some of those things by breaking down our work, right? We have this big piece of software. There's all of these different moving parts. Our goal is to break that down and avoid a large big bang release. The problem with these is that when we have big, large releases, we are accumulating risk along the way. And what we want is regular transparency so we can evaluate where we are if we're going in the right direction. That doesn't mean you have to deploy to production all the time. That's not our tech lead's goal. They may want to, it may help them, but at least getting things deployed somewhere so that we can see where it's going and try to avoid the accumulation of risk. Every piece of, every line of code that we write, every decision that we make that doesn't get deployed and seen by somebody is an assumption, right? And so we want to break those things out. We want to lay out those dependencies and try to use feedback loops, integrations, things along that line to evaluate whether or not we're making the right decisions, right? That might be doing things like building POCs. That might be doing some technical writing on the way systems parts integrate and writing tests toward that. Understanding our architecture and laying out how we can take kind of build out what we might call a tracer bullet through the architecture, right? A set of features that integrate down. It's also avoiding too much work in any layer of our architecture. So we want to break some of those things down, and it's an art. There's really no right answer for how to do this well. But I think over time, our tech leads have learned some of the tips and tricks for how to do those things. And it is something that we can practice together. All right. So we've talked about breaking down our overall problems. We've talked about being transparent. We've talked about some of those things. With all of those things in mind, at some point, somebody's going to ask you, when's it going to be done, right? And because other teams have dependencies on the work we're doing, right? It might be a marketing team doing things based on your work. Even if it's a couple of weeks away, being transparent and providing forecasts is really important. I'm not here to challenge the idea of no estimates or how to do estimates and things like that. At Sparkbox, we do things like we do relative sizing. That might be large, extra large, Fibonacci sequence stuff. How you do that, it's up to you. But at Sparkbox, we do relative sizing. One of our goals for our PMs and our tech leads is to help form an economy. It's a contentious topic, I get it. But at some point, somebody's going to ask you when their investment will pay off. And if you don't provide an answer, somebody's going to. And at the end of the day, whoever provides the answer is going to be the one what is heard from that forecast, that answer is going to become the truth. So you might as well work together to figure out what a reasonable answer is and be a part of the conversation. If you want to talk about what this idea of forming an economy looks like or how you can do these things, I think there's a lot of different ways to do it, and there's some interesting ways to do it. I'm happy to talk about it at some other time if you want to reach out. All right, so this next one is a little unique, but I think it's really important. And this is about self-growth and things along that line. Every project is going to run into challenges. You're going to run into challenges with people on your team. You're going to run into challenges with your customer, your client, your business, software itself. You're going to be wrong about how easy or hard something is to build. And you're going to put some of those constraints, whether it's time, budget, platform, you're going to be in a challenging position with those at some point. And dealing with challenges is important, and how you deal with them is important. At the end of the day, it's really important that our tech leads deal with this type of pressure effectively. It doesn't mean you don't feel pressure. It doesn't mean you don't get nervous, but how you deal with it is really important. So it's important to remain empathetic, right? To realize that you're not the only one running into this situation, and other people, like junior folks, your clients, are probably also getting asked similar questions to what they're asking you, right? If you have a client out there that you're building software for, there's a good chance they have a boss and they're being asked, and they're going to have to go explain the challenging situation to their boss. And so they're just as nervous as you are. And so you're in it together. So remain empathetic, be positive, right? Looking forward, finding ways to solve problems, not just lamenting that you have problems. Being transparent. It's really, this is often a hard lesson to learn in my mind, but it turns out that if you're transparent in all the time and on a regular cadence, sharing updates, doing those things for during the times that are good, not just disappearing and saying, hey, everything's great, and then showing up only when there's problems. If you're always transparent, it's a lot easier to have hard conversations with folks about the things that are going wrong if you've been talking all the way. So being persistent through problems, being transparent. Setbacks are inevitable. It's about how you recover from those setbacks. Recovering quickly from those setbacks is the important part for a tech lead. By maintaining some of these healthy relationships with your team members, your clients, and your users, this doesn't involve code, right? This doesn't involve GitHub. It doesn't involve build automation or tooling. This is just talking to folks on a regular basis and having healthy, positive relationships with folks. If you only show up when things are a problem, you're going to find that your relationships are not great. The biggest thing we're trying to avoid in all of our projects are surprises. If you can work with people on a regular basis, you can usually see things coming. You have a good relationship with folks. Challenging situations are much easier to deal with. This is an important thing to have. It also means you have to be able to receive tough feedback without reacting in kind. You want to create an atmosphere where folks can challenge, where folks can give feedback to you that's not always exciting to receive, but you need to be able to receive it in a positive and a healthy way. Because folks they know they're going to get the same from you as a leader. You have a lot of insight. They want to learn from you. Be able to receive the same kind of feedback that you're going to give to other folks. It's important. As a tech lead, you have a really neat opportunity to impact a lot of folks, to have an immense impact on the people that are around you, but also the projects that you're on. As a tech lead, we have this impact, but we also have an awful lot of opportunities to impact folks in a positive way, right? We have code reviews. We are probably, as a tech lead, looking at PRs, trying to understand what the health and the state of the code base. So during these code reviews, during PRs, we have an opportunity to lift people up in little tiny ways. Hey, have you seen this? There's some examples over here on. I love linking out to things like Martin Fowler's Bleaky, I think it's called, that he has out there. It has so many architecture ideas and concepts out there that you can correlate and lean on to help other folks learn new ways of solving things. You have an opportunity to celebrate the work that they do. You have an opportunity through writing great, empathetic or kind of insightful documentation. Technical guidance and mentoring opportunities are going to show up all day, every day. Lean into these opportunities and know that by creating new leaders around you, you can have an even bigger impact on projects, on people, and it's something that we've come to expect out of our tech leads. As a tech lead, you have the opportunity to look at the architecture and to evolve that architecture in a direction that's healthy and to open up seams for the rest of our team. Let me give you an example. This is from a project. So we worked with a client probably 5 or 6 years ago to help build out a product. They were pretty successful, and they built a team around it, and it was great. We did our job, and now they're a successful company. Well, they came back to us probably about 2.5 years ago and said, "Hey, we've got this really cool opportunity in a new market. It requires us to implement this thing in Japanese, I should say, but their product was not internationalized. It hadn't implemented translations or anything like that. So this is not a hard problem. Like it's not a unique problem, right? It's something a lot of us have faced. And so we were trying to figure out like how can we bring together. They had a short timeline. How can we help bring together a couple of folks on our team to solve this problem? One of them was going to be fairly junior. They had just left our apprenticeship, maybe 6-8 weeks out of our apprenticeship. And another had been working on software for a little while, was looking for opportunities to grow. And so we said, okay, I happen to be helping figure out how we were going to solve this problem. So we recognized kind of 2 categories of internationalization of translations that needed to happen in this system. They're pretty common, right? We have the ones where it's just static text, labels, things along that line. It doesn't change from, based on what's going on in the data, I guess, if you will. And then we have those more complex ones that are out there where we have maybe some data that's getting mixed in with some text, some pluralization, things like that, computed translations, right? So we got the simple ones and we got the more complex ones. So what we did was we talked about, we broke it down into those 2. We did an itemization of every translation that needed to happen in the app. And so we looked for this seam in this system, and that seam was basically, let's go create a module, function, whatever you want to call it. Maybe it was a class. Tech doesn't really matter. And the idea is we're going to give you some text and it's going to translate it. But for the short time, let's just, hey, developer that has been doing this for a little while, is looking for some new experiences. Here's what I want you to do. Let's go create a module that takes in a parameter, a function that takes in a parameter, and just for right now, just spit it back out, right? So I'm going to give you the word, hello, and you're going to give me hello back. Nothing hard, all right? And then later on, you're going to go and do the translations in there and spit the Japanese version out, for example. And while you're doing that, and once you've got that made, we're going to have this junior developer go over here. They're going to go through this new app. They've never worked in this platform. They're going to go through the list of translations that need to happen and put that in place, right? So what they should see before and after should be the same, but it will now be using this kind of seam in the system. So that module that we're creating becomes our seam to translate. And now our tech lead can go in there, implement the person that's going to go in there and implement the translation, that developer that's been doing this a little while can go in there and implement the translation logic. But we said, hey, I want you to think about this. Later on, we're going to pass in a list of arguments to this thing that you're going to probably need to mix in with data later. This is for the more complex ones. And they said, oh, okay, absolutely, I can do that, right? And what we did now was we created an opportunity for our person who's looking for tech lead opportunities to see what a seam looks like, to implement some more complicated logic. Our junior developer over here, who's only been hasn't even built software really before, this is their first project, is getting experience building software, seeing what continuous integration looks like, experiencing what it looks like to make some changes to code, see it work in production, deploy some things. They're getting an opportunity. All while our tech lead back here, all they were looking for was that simple seam in the middle. And now we've got two folks who've just grown their career on a simple project where it's just translating, right? It's a simple problem that a lot of folks are going to end up having to implement on almost all of their software. And we allowed our team to fan out, complete the remaining work, and go to town. And later on, he was our budding tech lead had an opportunity to implement some of the more complex logic, while this person over here was implementing those more complex translations, getting a feel more for the platform, etc. That's having an impact on two different people that can now go to another project and take on an even more complex role in those projects. All by finding the right seam, for our architecture. Okay, so unfortunately, actions don't necessarily always speak for themselves. It is actually pretty important for folks who want to grow their career to actively do those things, right? To actively think about what does it look like to grow our career from early junior developer to that role of tech lead. And if that's you out there, then let's talk about what this can look like, can look like to grow into a tech lead, but also let's talk about what kind of plans and foundational framework our leaders can put into place to grow folks into tech leads. So first thing, it's important to have a plan. You can't go into this and not have a plan. Well, maybe you can, but where you end up is going to be happenstance. So I think it's important. At Sparkbox, we have every 6 months a review and goal setting period. We're actually in the middle of this right now. And so that means across our 25 developer team, well, actually all 50 people at our company, but the development team that I'm a part of, we're all doing reviews and coming up and doing goal setting with their technical directors. And so as a part of those goals, they're going to come up with a plan for how to get to the next step in their career. We have a tech leadership role description. We have a career growth framework that kind of describes what career progression looks like at Sparkbox. We have some other foundational resources that folks can use to guide their career growth, and use that and come up with our plan with their technical directors for experiences on projects, curriculum that they could go and find, things along that, mentorship opportunities. And we turn those things into a plan as a part of this review and goal setting. It's important, for our team, talk to your manager. You can come talk to me. You can come talk to our technical directors, our director of projects, our director of delivery, all those folks. They're there to help support your plan to grow. And you can talk about where do you want to grow? What's the right next step for you? This is something interesting that a lot of folks at our company started doing a while back. Actually, the person that I am thinking about, Catherine Mead, she created this idea of a brag sheet. And I think of these very much like resumes, but we really encourage everybody at our organization, as neat things happen on projects. For example, the person in that internationalization project that we were talking about, they were looking to grow in their architecture skills so that they could grow. And what we asked that person to do after this effort was, hey, write that down. Write down that you and add that to your resume. That's a new bullet. While we're not looking for everybody to take off. We know that seasons are at Sparkbox are going to come to end for some folks, and we want them to be successful. And so having a brag sheet, having a resume that iterates and enumerates the growth that you've had is important, right? We want that to happen. Partner with other leaders. That might be folks outside of your organization. Maybe you have a client that you work really well with, a partner architect or tech lead on another organization or another department. Maybe other tech leads that you want to learn from. Go work with them and create a plan together. As you make your way into technical leadership, there are going to be folks following behind your footsteps. Start now. Support folks on your team help them learn, start practicing your communication skills that you're going to use as a tech lead early. And that's going to build other people up. That's what we're looking for in our tech leads at the end of the day. Folks who can support a team that can make other people better. If you can do that now, you're going to be in a great place later on. At the end of the day, the best thing about the software industry, about the technical industry, we're all makers. We like to make things, and the best thing for people who make things is to see their things used. As you grow your career and become a tech lead, you become a multiplier, a force multiplier to help build even bigger, better things. Just because you no longer are the top contributor writing the most code doesn't mean you're not a big impact and a big part of making successful software happen. And seeing the things that your teams can create being used by other people is pretty awesome. It really is the best feeling. Find some folks, find a mentor, make a plan, practice some of these skills every day. And this really is not a huge step to make. A lot of the folks that are here today, you're probably there. You might just not realize that you already are a leader on your team, a tech lead on your team. Let's just keep moving forward. If anybody has any questions, they're welcome to reach out to me in my email or on Twitter. I try to talk about these things on the Sparkbox Foundry as well. So if there's anything I can do, let me know.